definitely not least, kind of share your perspective, Kawan, about the importance of mental health in our Black community.
Jesus, mental health is so, so very important. Like, because, growing up, like, at least from my era growing up, you weren't allowed to talk about things like depression or stuff that's going on with you. And say they'd be like, "Oh, that boy is touched," or this is, and they embarrass you, make you embarrassed to talk about it. Now, what happens is,
Stigma.
especially with these kids, and a lot of these kids are suffering from PTSD. They don't have anything to talk. They don't have anyone to talk to about it. So what happens is they keep it all bottled up, and then they implode or explode. They hurt someone else or they hurt themselves.
Mhm,
And I think
mhm.
your peace and like I used to go to therapy when I was young, you know, because that was something that my mom identified when she started seeing traits of I don't even know what to call it. And I think now it's just like, as a writer, I have so many voices living in my head. People with my inside my head is constant chatter, never ending chatter from the morning I wake up to the time I go to sleep. So, I started displaying certain traits of certain things that concerned her. And so she put me in therapy and I was able to talk about some of these things. And I think it's important, man, that like
Early intervention.
early intervention, yeah, because that creates monsters. Not being able to get that off your chest and carrying it around and thinking like some of these kids that get touched and they think it's their fault. Or you know what I'm saying? You're not allowed to talk about that weirdo uncle that's always playing stink finger with one of the little nieces when they come by. And
Mhm,
the little niece grows up thinking it's her fault. And so she attracts a certain kind of man,
mhm,
or she doesn't feel like she has adequate value to herself in her life.
mhm,
And you destroyed that queen because you didn't listen, because she was not able to talk to you about it. Or dudes who come up and they beat the hell out of women, they become abusers because they saw their father do it to their mothers, or because they feel some type of way about women. These monsters, man. You let these mental health issues fester, man. It creates
mhm.
monsters.
The
And
whole
that's
cycle of destruction.
yeah, it's a cycle. Like, there was things that um I would say, like, if something happened and I want to talk about it in the house, I don't want to talk about that, and don't be in school telling the white people our business. But my mom wasn't like that. My
Mhm.
mom did drugs or whatever, but she was always very in tune to what was going on with me. I didn't know it. So early intervention for her was important. When I started manifesting these personalities, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's just Kwan. He's making shit up. Like, he's doing this, that, and that." And she's like, "No, it's like he's really manifesting personalities. This is not just something. Let me look into it." And I got to tell the story about my brother. I had a brother named Jeffrey who died. Now, this is what I would always say. This was as a kid. And I would say I had a brother Jeffrey who died, and I would play with Jeffrey or just stuff like that. And come to find out that I did have a sibling who was aborted, you know. But back then, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. So I think the first time I said it, I don't remember, it was one of my aunts or something. They slapped the shit out. Excuse my language, slapped me.
Oh,
Um, I saw somebody's house on fire one day, and I was just sitting there watching the fire, and I was like, "Oh, they burned," because that was the first thing that popped in my head. And they, instead of saying like, "What would make you say that?" I got a beat, not knowing that these were like issues. I was dealing with a lot of
yeah,
issues as a kid
yeah.
from things that I had seen, things that had happened to me, and they were manifesting themselves in the way, like how I created characters. They were manifesting themselves in different personality traits. And nobody's ever asked me about this, so you're probably the first person that I'm speaking openly to about this, because people don't care, people don't ask, they just want to know when the next book
Mhm,
coming out.
mhm. Appreciate
So
that.
yeah, so it's like these things will manifest, and even I didn't know until I was older that, okay, you were you were manifesting different personalities. These are the voices that were speaking in your head, and it was just like, and I just thankful that, because I see people that need to take medication to control it and to deal with it. Me, I write stories. You want to talk? You want to
Mhm,
chat in my head? I'll make you a character.
mhm. That's
Make you a
therapy.
character,
That's therapy.
and I never lose myself. Sometimes I do inherit character traits from the characters in my books, but I never lose myself. Reality check, reality check. My
Mhm.
wife always tells me, do you do? She always says, like, do a self diagnostic. How do you feel today? What's going on
Checking
with
in.
you? Yeah, check in on yourself. And I'm like, well, she's like, no, check in on yourself. How do you feel? How do you feel physically, mentally? How do you feel? What's going on with you? Are you right? Boom. I said, never thought about that.
I definitely appreciate you getting in depth because, interestingly, I'm a graduate counseling student. So my regular 9 to 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a youth corrections officer. But then I switch over and do my internship hours at a different youth facility as a mental health counseling intern. Because years back, Kawan, I realized that, a lot of our young men and women of color, we don't have professional helpers and therapists that look like us.
Exactly.
So sometimes that creates a little bit of an extra barrier. So I'm like, I've been through some things in the military, and even my journey to America was full of violence. It was a violent government overthrow. My father was exiled from Ghana.
Where you
So,
from? Oh, Ghana, Ghana. Yes.
like let me get more into mental health and let me figure out a way to kind of be that welcoming face for our young brothers and our young sisters. So I always incorporate that piece into this youth and mentorship podcast. So everything you're saying, like I'm taking it in, I'm soaking it all in. So I definitely appreciate that, Kawan.
Yeah, it's important, man. And like you said, we don't have people that look like us. Because when I was going to therapists when I was a kid, they were white, they looked disinterested. So it's like, man, I ain't talking to this cracker. They ain't gonna understand. They're just there to do a job. Whereas opposed to maybe if it had been somebody who looked like you, I would have been more open because it's that, what I'm saying? It's the connection. Like, all right, it's a brother.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no doubt. Kawan, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
I was
it's
happy
really
to
hard to, pull the coat of guys like you because you got a lot going on your plate. I'm looking forward to uploading this episode on the Facebook podcast page, Heavy Brand Podcast. My brand is heavy, and I want to continue inspiring and motivating our young people. I'm looking forward to sharing this episode with our young men once I get back to work tomorrow. So thank you so much. I definitely appreciate this blessing. Thank you for the blessing, man.
And I hope it helps, man. Even if I can help one person with my story, then we've done something good today.
Amen to that. I'll definitely try to keep in touch. I don't know if you see I know you get a lot of DMs and stuff, but I would definitely try to reach out again and follow up on this episode.
Please do, man. Yeah, please do. I get a bunch of DMs, but I try to go through all of them. And I'm not always the speediest responder, but I try to go through all of them. So, definitely, please, man, keep me informed and let me know what's going on with this.
Yes, sir. Salute, my new friend. Salute.
My brother, man. I'm going to get with you.
Amen.
All right, peace. Can you point me at a glass of water? So she actually responded like, boy, is you trolling me? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, yo, listen, I got this story. They're telling me there's no market for it, but I see books like yours and books like Shannon. Like, how did you do it? Like, I wasn't reaching out to her to get a deal. I was like, how did you do it? And I sent her a sample of Gangsta, I think the first chapter. And she was like, yo, I feel like you're trolling me because this book is crazy. I can't believe that nobody's offered to help you.
And was it originally based on your life?
Loosely.
Okay.
I had just moved. Like, I was one of those people, right? After I graduated high school, I packed a duffel bag and I just started roaming the country. No plan, nothing, just roaming. So I had just came back from LA, I think 1990, what was it 1999? I think I came back from LA. And it was also fresh in my mind because, gangbanging is not something that's native to New York. Like, our gangs in New York, like, we rep different blocks and whatever, but LA, like, we would laugh at the culture. But once I got to live amongst the culture and really begin to understand it, I was like, yo, this is not a fad. This is not this is a way of life. So a lot of my homies was Bloods, a lot of my homies was Crips, and I would just talk to them, and plus the job I had, I was going door to door selling books, magazines, and Bibles. So I'm in the middle of Compton, knocking on random people's doors, trying to sell them Bibles. And these dudes just like, yo, are you high? What are you doing? So, like, they didn't buy nothing, but I would sit and smoke weed with some of these. They'd be like, yo, shorty, you can't be roaming around out here, because what they would do is they would drop us. They would take these vans, would drop us off and come back for us in like an hour or
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And so they was like, Shorty, you can't come in the house. You can't just be roaming around out here. You know where you at. So I'd be in the house waiting for the ride, and I'd just be picking their brains, and they would just tell me about, gang culture and life in
Way of
Los
life.
Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it stuck with me. So when I came back to New York and I was looking, because, Bloods and Crips were just beginning to get
Starting
popular.
to.
And I was like, y'all not doing it right. This is not right. This is not how they do it. So I started writing this story, which was based on me, because the main character had been in the streets all his life and he wanted a way out. He desperately wanted to do
Hmm.
something better with his
Hmm.
life. And I made them Bloods and Crips, and they were like two Crips that moved to New York and unified just the gang sets.
Oh,
They
wow.
unified the sets. So, but I was kicking some real stuff in the stories, because, like I said, I was fresh back from California. It's like graduating from college and you want to share everything that you learned in college with the people around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's why I like, and the book, and I didn't know it at the time, but the book hit so close to home, because the two main characters were Crips. I used to get letters from like Bloods on Rikers Island and in penitentiaries like, we gonna kill you, Crab, when we catch you, because everybody, it
Uh,
was so, the dialogue and the circumstance was so authentic. Everybody thought I was gangbanging, and I wasn't. So it wasn't until, like, years later, when I started going back to the West Coast and got some home, they like, nah, you were hitting so close to home on a lot of these things, not even knowing it. So you ruffled a lot of feathers. So that was basically how that started. And I didn't want to be no writer. I said, I'm gonna do one book, and then I'm gonna stop. And that's gonna be it. I'm out of here. I'm gonna make a little money, because I was getting ready to have a baby. Make a little money. So my publisher, again, here's Vicky. Vicky said, "You serious about retiring?" I said, "Yeah. This ain't me. Like, I'm a street dude. Like, I ain't want no books." And she was like, "Well, they said you would say that." And I said, "Who's that?" And she was like, "Everybody's," because Gangster had sold so many copies. And this was with no distribution, no placement in Barnes and Nobles. This is just on street corners. I had sold like 100,000 books. And
wow.
so I'm like, "Who's they?" And she was like, "Everybody's saying that you're a one-hit wonder and you couldn't do it again, but go ahead and retire, live your life, do what you're gonna do." So I'm a Sagittarius. My ego wouldn't allow it. So I'm like, "What? I'm gonna show these people." And I wrote Road Dogs. So I started picking up this momentum. And of course, bookstores started wanting to know who I was, publishers, because nobody knew what I looked like. I wouldn't allow myself to be photographed. There was no picture on the back, because I was still in the street.
Oh,
So
that's why. Okay.
they was like, this Kawan person, the one name writer, he don't exist. So I'm like, whatever. So it wasn't until like I got with a major that I came out of my shell and I started letting people see me. Like, like, hey, this is me. I'm a real person. And the funny thing about that is, this is around the time like we had like Black Planet and MySpace, and I had started. I'm sorry, I'm looking back and forth between the game. So I started getting like emails from people, and they were telling me how my work affected their lives,
Mm.
and I'm like, me? And they're like, yeah. So I felt like I had a responsibility to stay the course. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm inspired. I've been dirt all my life. Inspire you? What you mean I inspired you? I ain't nothing. I ain't shit. That's my language. This is what all my teachers always told me. This is what my people told me. This is what I've been told all my life, that I ain't nothing, that I'm dirt. It's impossible for me to inspire you. So when I started seeing it, I said, I need to really take into consideration what's going on. Now, the cool part about it is, like I told you when we started talking, my mom was a writer. I had no desire to be a writer, didn't want to be a writer. She died without ever being published. So
Rest
it
in
was like
peace.
the gift, thank you. So it was like the gift went from her to me as she was on her deathbed. There was the one thing that she left me, the greatest thing in her passing. She left me the one thing that she had, that she loved, that she cherished, most of her talent. So I look at it like I'm living somebody else's dream. I have to take this seriously. I have to be the best at what I do. So this
Mhm.
is why I like, and it trips people out, because like I'm a nice guy. I like to laugh. I like to joke. I'm a clown. I'm always cracking jokes. But when we in that arena, when it's time to get those stories out there, I'm a dog.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
a dog with it. And they're like, man, why you so serious all the time? Like, because this was hers. I don't have no right to this. This was hers. I
Mhm.
got it by default. I can't squander. I gotta be better than you.
You
I
got a
have to be the best.
responsibility.
Yeah, I have a responsibility to be the best. And I used to have this list. I called it my kill list. And Vicky had gave me a list of names of authors and their titles. Like, these are the books I want you to read. This is your competition. I used to have it pinned to the wall. And I would look and like, this is my kill list. You dead, you dead, you dead. I'm coming for your spot. And that's how I took it. Even with the authors in like, and I'm so petty that I remember the authors who were bigger than me that slighted me.
Okay.
So when I got to that point and I would see them at events, they would be like, hey, come on. I'd be like, man, on my face. They were like, yo, I never met this dude a day in my life. And what? But I'm like, nah, like I was the kid who told me I couldn't hang, or you told me I was nothing, or you told me I wouldn't make it. You don't
Mhm.
remember me? Little dirty kid from the projects begging you for
Mhm.
help. And this is what
Mhm.
you was. They were like, that was you? Yeah, that was me. So you got to be careful about who you slight, because
Yes,
the same
sir.
people you see on the way up, you'll see on the way down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That reminds me of some lyrics from Nas back in the day when he said, uh, went from Seiko to Rolex, some Korean man brushing me off, and then years back he came back, he was able to get whatever jewelry, he
Yeah,
wanted. So I was just, reflecting on that.
that's a fact.
Now, once you built your brand, you're getting recognition and all that, and now you're doing work with some big names. Kind of tell us a little bit about the book Blow and the connection with 50 Cent on that one, Curtis Jackson.
Now, this is the thing. With the book Blow, 50 Cent didn't pen not one word in that story.
Oh,
Not a period, not a comma, not a nothing. What happened was I was writing one story for G Unit. And
okay.
and at the time, I came up, like I said, I came up and I come from a criminal family. And I'm not saying it as like as a badge of honor or something that I'm proud of.
It's a
It's just
fact.
it's what it is.
Mhm.
At the time with Blow, all of my friends and all of my cousins had got knocked on the same indictment. Um, and so like during the trial, I was seeing guys that we grew up with that came and played with my newborn baby, and we was at each other's houses on the stand, pointing the finger like him. And I'm like, everybody's accountable. Like nobody put a gun in your head, but
Made
they
you do it.
turned.
Yeah.
They turned. So I started writing the story, and Blow is loosely based on true events. Now the
Okay.
publisher didn't know that at the time. So I'm like, yo, I know like I was contracted to do one book for y'all, but I got this other book you might want to take a look at. And I gave them Blow. What I did with Blow is I used the real names, addresses, factual information. I never used anything that would incriminate my people that was in jail, but the dudes who snitched, I used their real names. I put their real addresses in the books.
Okay.
So, and I knew because I said, okay, this is a G Unit project. So I know this is going, it's gonna get the visibility.
You'll have a machine behind it pushing.
Yeah. So and I did it, and it had its desired effect because it outed a lot of people, because it's like I said, you could be sitting next to somebody and not knowing, like, you thinking this is a good dude. This dude just took 5 people away from their family, and it's like
Mhm.
when we do wrong, we accept the responsibility for the wrong things that we do. But a lot of these dudes was just blatantly lying. Like I seen a dude point the finger at a dude who I knew for a fact had raised him and took care of him, and told the judge and jury that he was in fear of his life. And I'm like, this dude fed you when your mother wouldn't. He would never hurt you. You knew that. But to save your skin, all right, this is what it is. And so that just like, and I already had trust issues before that. But with seeing that, because like I said, man, can you imagine somebody that you peep that you did, that you like knocked down your first 40 with, ran with girls with, and they
Got
just turn
history.
on you, and
Yeah.
they got history. I'm talking about like your people know they people, like their parents. Like this caused a rift in the relationships between parents, siblings. Like it was a lot. To this day, there is still a divide in my projects where like, all right, we don't come to y'all side and y'all don't come to our side because of some of those events.
Oh,
Simple as
man.
crossing the street. So it's like the friends that you had before that, you can't be friends no more because it's a divide. This divide created by these dudes, and I think it's so crazy. And through the grace of God, I never got caught up with that. I was my bag was different. I was never really a drug dealer. I sold weed, but my thing was I was a burglar. I was a robber. That was my thing.
Oh,
I
wow.
was a robber. So I was spared a lot of that because I was like I would be on the block, but couldn't nobody say we saw him do this or ever say I gave them something because it was like when I say all my friends, all of them, all of them, not one, two, three, four, five, all of them on the same indictment. So when it was like I was just left on an island by myself when everybody went away,
Oh,
and so that's when I really said, all right, let me really put my nose to the ground, man, and get this right. So that's how Blow came about. I wanted people to know that story. I wanted people to know what some of these dudes were, because a lot of these dudes, man, they were right back in the street doing what they were doing and peacocking around like they was gangsters and they was big men and they was rats, and the
yeah.
world needed to know it. They was rats. I'm talking about rats. It was even one dude who like they offered him 6 months in jail and he told on somebody just did not to do 6 months. And I mean, one day in jail is too long, but the judge, it was so funny because the judge was like, "Yo, why are you even here? You don't have any useful information to this case. What are you doing? What are you even doing here?" So it was
Just
like one,
volunteer.
yeah, just volunteering, like, "Hey, I know something too." Yeah. So like, it was hard. Like I came up hard in that way, you know.
And and as as you're saying, is me growing up in Detroit. Detroit is also one of those cities where a lot of our artists, what they talk about, they live. There's no fairy tales, and if there is, they'll get exposed real quick. You
Oh, I'm
know.
familiar. I'm in Detroit all the time. I'm familiar.
Okay, so you already know.
Yeah, yeah.
um, Now, what are some of the challenges, as far as like think of the young generation now? What are
Hmm.
some of the challenges with